Pay close attention. The news you're about to see is fulfilling Bible prophecy.
Welcome to another edition of YPN News, bringing you news as it relates to Bible prophecy and foretold by Yeshua Hawkins. Well, you know, with the summertime months taking place pretty much in full swing, we're seeing a lot of things take place at the beaches that's really going to throw a lot of people for a whirlwind, as some of these news reports are going to actually bring forth. One of the things, shark attacks. Right? Another question is Bibles in schools. A lot of people are concerned about the separation of church and state, but we're going to see one particular state is pushing for that in the schools. And the Surgeon General is actually talking about putting a warning on social media, dealing with a lot of mental health issues for the youth. Well, like we said, to begin, at a 4th of July celebration in Provo, Utah, 6 people were injured after a fireworks display went haywire. Well, there were about 45,000 people in attendance, and local officials are looking into what caused the malfunction.
Well, more action on the 4th of July as several people were attacked on South Padre Island, this time not by fireworks, but by sharks. Now, 3 out of the 4 that reported being bitten by a shark were treated at the scene, while 1 was taken to the hospital. Now, in spite of that, the beaches remained open.
Well, several beaches are closing, well, not due to macro-sized marine life, but micro-sized. That's right, beaches are shut down due to high levels of bacteria. Beaches from New York to Massachusetts and even on the West Coast in California. Officials advise people to stay out of the water. In Massachusetts, more than 40 beaches are closed.
Well, 3 areas along San Diego Bay are closed off basically for the swimmers. Now, on the East Coast, the cause is being blamed on heavy rain and storm runoff contaminating water with germs. Now, those germs, E. coli and Enterococci, are the 2 marker bacteria that health officials look for to determine if other bacteria are present. Now, that according to Robert Goldstein, commissioner for the Massachusetts Department of Public Health.
Well, those 2 bacteria are what's typically seen in runoff and wastewater. And if that bacteria gets into an open wound, of course, it can cause infections. In fact, Dr. Alok Patel, an ABC News contributor with Stanford Children's Health, said, quote, "Anyone is at risk. If you swallow the water, if you touch the water and don't wash your hands before you eat or drink, or if you have an open cut or wound, of course, you could get sick."
Right, and it can be just a scratch or something real small. Any abrasive on the skin can open that up to that bacteria getting inside. Well, the CDC recommends staying out of the water if you're heading to the beach this 4th of July weekend, especially if you notice the water is more cloudy than usual, discolored, or smells bad. Now, also obey posted warning signs about water conditions. Experts recommend showering after swimming, and know the condition of the status of the beach you're visiting before you go.
Well, Hurricane Beryl is headed to Texas, and officials are warning those in its path to take the warning serious and get ready. A tropical storm, of course it is right now. It's slowed from a hurricane, but of course it is expected to intensify back into a hurricane as it crosses the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico, bringing with it a life-threatening storm surge and up to 15 inches of rain. Well, the storm has already taken the lives of 11 people and has made its course across the Atlantic, of course, passing through the Caribbean and over the Yucatan Peninsula, leaving destruction in its path.
15 inches, tremendous amount of rain at one time.
That's right.
Well, Barrow comes just 2 weeks after Tropical Storm Alberto slammed into South Texas, flooding beach communities, and residents say that they're expecting the worst, but of course, praying for the best.
Well, we're going to turn over to our field correspondent, Larry McGee, as he has some information on what some land and homeowners are dealing with when it comes to squatters and the problems they're having with trying to actually get those people off of their property. He's going to cover a little bit about a police shooting, a recent police shooting that left a 13-year-old dead, and that situation with Bibles in Oklahoma schools. Larry, what do you have for us?
Homelessness is a major issue in a number of states throughout the country, and without an appropriate remedy, it is manifesting in an increase in what is being called squatting. This is where people without a home of their own trespass onto the property of others and take up residence there. In places like Los Angeles, the squatters have been afforded rights by the courts, with the result that property owners have a very difficult time evicting them once they have trespassed and essentially stolen the property. Worse than stolen property is a life stolen, and in Utica, New York, this is exactly the suspicion after a 13-year-old young man was killed by police after being stopped. Please have a look at this video for details.
Tonight, the New York State Attorney General's office is investigating the police shooting death of a 13-year-old boy in Utica, New York. Michael George is there as the boy's family and community are demanding answers. Michael.
Well, Jerika, right now, community members are meeting with the mayor here. There are also newly released body camera videos from the 3 officers involved, and we want to caution some viewers may find these disturbing. Utica police say they stopped this 13-year-old and another teen Friday night because they matched the description of robbery suspects.
Can I just pat you down and make sure you got no weapons on you?
The teen runs. Police say he pointed what looked like a gun at officers. It was later confirmed to be this pellet gun. Police say designed to look like a Glock with a detachable magazine. One officer wrestles the teen to the ground and punches him. Another officer fires.
Oh my God! Yo, he just shot him!
The teen, identified as Nia Emwe, died at the hospital. This witness, who asked us to hide her identity, recorded the video of the incident. From what you witnessed, do you believe the officer was justified in shooting?
No, that's somebody's baby. And he didn't fight back. Even when y'all laid him on the ground and was punching on him and stuff, that boy didn't fight back.
The officers are on paid leave, pending an investigation to see if they followed protocol. After the shooting, officers performed chest compressions. Initially, there's confusion about who was shot and who fired.
I don't know if he shot me.
Check him, buddy, check him.
Is there any more shots?
Just one? There's just one shot, it was me.
Emwe was a refugee from Myanmar and a part of the Karen ethnic minority. At a vigil Saturday night, community members prayed for Emwe and demanded justice.
On behalf of a well-rounded education, the superintendent in Oklahoma is now mandating that every classroom have a Bible and read from it. Unsurprisingly, the move is causing backlash from those within the state who don't have a value for the ancient text, who say that the move essentially represents a violation of the U.S. Constitution. There were quite a number of within the state who expressed open thanks to Mr. Walters, the official responsible for the action, but there are also those who accuse him of abusing his powers and forcing his beliefs onto others. Mr. Walters says the objective is to provide an accurate review of American history. In Louisiana, a similar action has been taken by Governor Landry, who recently signed legislation mandating that the Ten Commandments be displayed in classrooms throughout that state, where he is also receiving comparable legal backlash. All in all, revolving around the ideas of freedom of religion versus the establishment of religion by the state, the two recent moves and the opposition that they are receiving are thought by analysts to be leading and building up to a major showdown at the Supreme Court level. For YPN News, I'm Larry McGee. Katan Jeff, back to you.
Well, Katan, it's interesting that they want to use the Bible as history. They could also use it as current events, seeing so many of the news articles and the things taking place in the world today were actually prophesied in the Bible.
That's right. And then you see what a lot of the, the courthouses, they used to have the Ten Commandments in the front, showing that there needs to be rules followed by a society in order for there to be structure and peace.
Absolutely. Well, the Surgeon General wants the United States Congress to make health warning labels mandatory for social media sites. Now, he says social media is contributing to a mental health crisis among young people today. Now, parents are wanting some help from the government as well, because the face of the internet has changed so much with the addition of social media. It is almost impossible to keep up with what children and teens are doing on their devices. Now, one mom has compared it to the Wild West.
Well, here's what's concerning a lot of people. According to the Gallup poll, on average, teens spend 4.8 hours a day on social media. But even if they only spend 3 hours a day on their phones or tablets, JAMA Psychiatry 2019 discovered teens were still twice as likely to suffer from symptoms of anxiety and depression.
Well, Dr. Vivek Murthy is the Surgeon General, and he wants the warning label on social platforms to state, quote, social media is associated with significant mental health harms for adolescents, unquote. Now, Dr. Murthy says we have to act with urgency. The most important thing that we've got to do is make social media safer with safety standards.
And that's one of the big concerns that a lot of parents have, is that when it comes to social media, there are no standards. Anything goes. So a lot of things are put into a lot of the young people's minds that they're not mentally ready to cope with.
Right, and 5 hours. I mean, 4.8 hours, almost 5 full hours a day.
Yeah.
It's an incredible amount of time.
So much productivity and learning lost. Well, social psychologist Jonathan Haidt explains the rise of social media has paralleled an increase in mental illness. He says children today are getting less of everything that matters: less sleep, less time with friends, less time outside, less time moving. They're losing childhood, and that's got to impede childhood development.
Well, warning labels are welcomed by parents. However, one mother told CBS Evening News, she said, I feel like it's a really good move in the right direction, but as for what it's going to do, I don't have a whole lot of hope, to be honest.
Yeah, it's kind of like putting the warning labels on certain alcohol and drugs. You know, it doesn't stop people from using those things. And so, like they said, you know, we need to have better standards. First, Cuba's Havana Bay welcomed a visit from 4 Russian naval vessels in June. And now, less than a month later, 2 of those vessels are docking in the Venezuela port of La Guaira. One of the main purposes for the ships traveling to South American continent is to show their presence in remote ocean areas, as well as to exhibit Russia's close ties with Venezuela's current president, Nicolas Maduro, who is up for re-election at the end of July. Well, let's take a look at some coverage of the Russians' visit to Venezuela, presented by First Post America. Please pay close attention.
And speaking of Putin, 2 Russian warships have docked in the Latin American nation of Venezuela after conducting military exercises in the Atlantic Ocean. Moscow says the drills were conducted to show its presence in remote and important regions. Now, this comes weeks after 4 Russian naval vessels, including a nuclear-powered submarine, visited Cuba for 5 days. Now the vessels that arrived in Venezuela include a logistics ship and a frigate capable of carrying hypersonic missiles. Both of these vessels are part of Russia's Northern Fleet. The Venezuelan army has welcomed the Russian Navy, saying their stopover expresses Moscow's friendship, solidarity, and support towards the South American nation.
Today we received, together with a representation of the government of La Guaira and the mayor, these sister ships from the Russian Federation, who in their passage through the Caribbean are making a stop in our state of La Guaira to rest, to share, to express with the crews of these ships their friendship, their solidarity, and, of course, their support to Venezuela, their backing.
Now the Russian fleet's visit comes as Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is eyeing a 3rd term in the presidential election on the 28th of July. Meanwhile, the United States has urged Maduro to ensure the election will be competitive and inclusive.
in the context of Venezuela, you've heard us say this before, we, of course, welcome dialogue in good faith, and we support the Venezuelan people's desire for competitive and inclusive elections on July 28th. And we are clear-eyed that democratic change will not be easy and certainly requires a serious commitment. We're going to continue to work with the international community and democratic actors in Venezuela to support the aspirations of the Venezuelan people.
Now on Wednesday, senior U.S. officials and Venezuelan authorities resumed talks to improve fraught relations between the two countries. Washington has expressed concerns about whether Maduro will make good on his promises to hold a free and fair election. Earlier, Western nations dismissed his 2018 re-election as a sham, and in April, Washington reimposed oil sanctions on Venezuela, accusing Maduro of not complying with electoral guarantees he made in deals with the opposition. Now, reports are that secret negotiations between the United States and Venezuela in Qatar last year helped Maduro to schedule the election this month. And now it remains to be seen how the new round of talks between Caracas and Washington will turn out in the presence of Russian forces in the country.
Well, Catan, strengthening the ties is exactly what we see nations doing at this particular time period, as drawing the lines here, and everybody's kind of seeing who is going to ally with who.
That's right.
Well, more than 260 days, that's how long the war in Gaza has been raging. And through it, there has been talk about another war between Israel and a different enemy, Hezbollah. But now this seems to be much more like a reality. Just this week, Israeli fighter jets hit and destroyed a military structure located in Lebanon that belongs to Hezbollah, as well as several other locations further south, including a Hezbollah weapons storage facility.
Well, this wasn't an isolated incident, however, but a trend that has been taking place along the Lebanon-Israeli border. Since October of 2023, Hezbollah has fired nearly 5,000 rockets into Israel. Israel has returned attacks, killing 300 Hezbollah fighters, and one attack in June killed a senior Hezbollah commander, and at this time, the group's leader sounded a warning, saying Hezbollah was ready for war, but the warning has not deterred further aggression by Israel.
Well, in fact, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu traveled to the northern frontier and met with reservist soldiers there. He told them that the mission in Gaza is winding down and the focus can be put on Lebanon. So the question remains, is war inevitable or can it be avoided?
Interesting. Well, at the rate that nations are going, there's no way that they can avoid war. And even these conflicts that they call conflicts prior to war really are still forms of war.
Right. And, we see that many people were concerned right in the beginning when the Israelis started going in and basically retaliating for the strike that the Palestinians, took place there. But everybody was worried about, is this going to escalate into a greater regional conflict? So now you have Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister, there basically saying, look, this is winding down here and we can now focus on Lebanon. So it is going into a greater regional conflict. But, the question remains, could the war have been avoided? And the answer could have been yes, had they followed the steps that were taken and actually sought a way for a peaceful solution instead of, fighting it out.
That's right. That's right. There are no winners in war. Two wrongs don't make a right.
Well, if you'd like to find out more about these stories, contact the House of Yahweh. When you do, don't forget to request your free copy of the monthly newsletter and Prophetic Word magazine. Here's how.
To contact the House of Yahweh, you can write them at the House of Yahweh, P.O. Box 2498, Abilene, Texas 79604. You can call them at 1-800-613-9494. Visit their websites by going to Yahweh.com, YisraelHawkins.com, and Yahweh'sBranch.com. You can also visit our website by going to YPNnews.com. You can email the House of Yahweh at info@Yahweh.com. And for all calls outside the United States, please dial the number on your screen. And of course, don't forget the Yisrael Says and Ask Israel programs. You can find those online by going to YisraelSays.com and AskYisrael.com.
Well, don't go anywhere. Up next is another classic message from Yisrael Hawkins. From all of us here at YPN News, I'm Jeffrey Heimerman.
And I'm Catan Alexander.
Thanks for watching.